Namaskar and welcome to Curries with Bumbi. Today I have come with a highly requested recipe, that is Rogan Josh, which is a Kashmiri dish. This recipe is not the one that is served in the restaurants of the western part of the world, but I have tried my best to come up with the Kashmiri style Rogan Josh recipe. Due to the lack of availability of a particular ingredient, which is near to impossible getting it where I live, I've tried my best to go close to the original recipe. I will be showing you the Rogan Josh recipe that is followed by the Kashmiri Wazwan cuisine, where there is inclusion of onions and garlic. Usually, Rogan Josh is made with lamb or mutton. I have used lamb, and you need large chunky leg and shoulder pieces for this recipe, and please use with bones. This is such a unique recipe and so different from the usual way of cooking a curry. Add 6 to 7 large garlic cloves, a dry bay leaf, 4 cloves and a cinnamon stick. Add salt and then add water to barely cover the top of the meat. I have used hot water. What we are doing here is preparing to make a broth. Allow it to come to a boil over medium heat. Soon you will see a scum forming on the surface. You need to skim that off to get a clean and clear broth. Now I am using a pressure cooker, but you can make this in any regular pot. But in that case it will take a much longer time. I always cook lamb or mutton in my pressure cooker or instant pot because that's how I like it. We need a black cardamom and few green cardamoms. Whack them a little bit. If you do not get black cardamoms, just use green cardamoms. Okay, once you get rid of all that scum, add the cardamoms. Then lid on pressure cooker. Allow the cooker to come to full pressure on high heat and then lower the heat to low and set a timer for 30 minutes or 35 minutes if cooking in an instant pot. You do not want the meat to fall off the bone because it will be cooked further with other ingredients later on. So it needs to be just 80% cooked. While the broth is in the making, we will be browning onions. Heat up 1/3 of a cup of oil. Usually mustard oil is used and I am using the same, but you can use any oil of your choice. If using mustard oil, you need to heat the oil on high heat till it starts smoking. Then reduce the heat to low to bring down the temperature of oil and then add the onions. I added a sprinkle of salt. Stir the onions on medium heat till it starts developing a brown color along the edges. Usually a special type of shallot known as prawn is used in Kashmir, but in order to adapt a recipe you have to make use of whatever is available at your place. So I used yellow onions. You can also use regular shallots or even red onions. The dish gets its sweetness from the onions, so you need to brown the onions gradually to bring out that sweetness. And my friends, there is no shortcut to this. And don't even consider any shortcuts when it comes to browning onions for making any curry. I know it will take some time and patience, but this is the hardest part of the recipe. The rest is all smooth, easy sailing. Just trust me. Rogan Josh can be done in 2 ways. The Kashmiri Pandit style, which does not include any onions or garlic, but it uses asafoetida, that is hing. On the other hand, the Wazwan meal includes onions and garlic. Since I like cooking any meat with onions and garlic, I chose the Wazwan style. As soon as you see the onions are getting colored, you need to stir them continuously to get an even browning all happening together. Do not allow them to turn chocolatey brown, as that is near to getting bitter, which will make your gravy taste awfully bitter. And the onions keep getting darker from the residual heat, even after they are taken out. So as soon as they get this golden brown color, switch off the heat of your stove, take the pan off heat and transfer the onions to a plate. With your spoon, spread them out so that they do not clump up and get darker in color from the residual heat. Allow them to cool down and then transfer them to your blender jar along with 1/3 of a cup of water. And we need a paste like this, which is not looking good at all now, but that's all loaded with flavor that will bring in gorgeousness and deliciousness to the gravy. Okay, the next step is optional. In a bowl, add a few threads of saffron, Add about 1/4 cup of hot water and allow it to steep for some time. In fact, do this before you start browning the onions. But again, use of saffron is totally optional. Okay, after 30 minutes of pressure cooking, switch off the heat and allow all that pressure to be released naturally, and only then open the lid of the cooker. You need to open the lid after all the pressure has been released. Remove the bay leaf, cardamoms, cinnamon stick and cloves. Now back to my pan in which I fried the onions. I again added a tablespoon of oil and a tablespoon of ghee. Heat the oil and ghee on medium heat. Once it turns warm, and remember my friends, I said warm, switch off the heat of your stove and add 2 teaspoons of Kashmiri red chili powder along with another ingredient that is not used in this recipe, that is 2 tablespoons of paprika. Immediately add a few ladlefuls of the lamb broth. Switch your stove back on to very low and allow it to bubble for a few seconds. Usually a bark of a herb known as ratan jot or cockscomb flowers are used to get the red color, but that's near to impossible to obtain where I live. So paprika is the best option, which does no harm to the flavors as it practically has no flavor at all, but brings in that bright red color. You can also use only Kashmiri red chili powder, but in that case you have to use about 2 tablespoons, and that makes the dish too hot for me. So paprika it is for me. Next add the pepper oil into the lamb, and then comes in some unique ingredients. This is fennel powder. I have ground some fennel seeds in my grinder. Then 2 teaspoons of dried ginger powder and just 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric powder, along with 2 teaspoons of ground coriander and a teaspoon of garam masala powder. Switch on the heat of your stove to high. Add the brown onion paste and the saffron water if you are using it. Now what you need to do is boil the gravy on high heat till it starts getting a little thick and the oil starts floating on top. Now here I would like to say, if you see the meat falling apart, take out the meat onto a plate and boil off the gravy. That's why I said the meat needs to be cooked 80% initially, and the rest will get cooked now while the gravy gets thickened. Isn't it a very interesting recipe? And you hardly need to do anything except browning the onions, but believe me, you will love this. Soon you will see the red oil floating on top, and that is known as Rogan, which is the oil or fat that floats with all its glory on top, hence the name Rogan Josh. I mean, for some that oil may look unhealthy, but for me it is all gloriously comforting considering how delicate that gravy is. Do a taste test and adjust the seasonings. Add more salt if you think it is required, or add more Kashmiri chili powder if you think you can handle more heat. The consistency of gravy, I will leave that up to you. I do not like it to be like a swimming pool, nor do I want it to be too thick, as it thickens down further once it cools down. The gravy is so delicately flavored, and the dish has its own unique flavor, which is so very different from other meat curries. And my friends, it is totally different from the Rogan Josh that you get at Indian restaurants here in the West. I have tried my best to stick to the original recipe in the best way possible. But my friends, if you want to get the original taste of any recipe, then one has to visit that very place. And if you can't, then try your best to go close to any recipe with whatever ingredients is readily available at your place. This is how dishes evolve, depending on availability of ingredients. Please give me a like if you've enjoyed watching this video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.